A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
My Weird Prompts is a community-driven initiative exploring how AI can fuel curiosity and uncover the fascinating ways our world works. GPU compute for this podcast is generously provided by Modal. Learn more at modal.com.
Herman, I was looking at the trending topics on social media this morning, and it is the same old story. Everyone is losing their minds over whatever the latest frontier model from the big labs can do in terms of writing poetry or generating videos of cats playing the drums. It is all very flashy, and it gets the clicks, but it feels like we are collectively ignoring the actual machinery that is going to run the world. The headline-grabbing era of AI feels like it is cooling off just a bit, as people realize that a chatbot that can write a sonnet does not necessarily help you manage a global supply chain. Today's prompt from Daniel is about IBM and their Granite model family. He wants us to look at how a tech giant like IBM is building the industrial-grade plumbing for the next decade of business.
Granite deserves the spotlight. I am Herman Poppleberry, by the way, for anyone who needs the full name for their records. Daniel's prompt is hitting on something fundamental, because while the internet is busy arguing about which chatbot is the most sentient, IBM has been quietly building the workhorse of the enterprise. They are not competing for aesthetic appeal, they are competing for infrastructure dominance. We are moving out of the era of AI as a toy and into the era of AI as a reliable, essential utility. And in the world of business, boring is actually a massive compliment. It means it works when you flip the switch.
It is classic IBM. They are focusing on the utility while everyone else is on the red carpet. But I think people hear IBM and they think of old mainframes or that Jeopardy appearance from 15 years ago. They do not realize that Granite is currently in its 4th generation. We are talking about Granite 4.0, which just rolled out and is starting to turn heads in the technical community. What is actually under the hood here that makes it different from just another large language model?
The architectural shift in Granite 4.0 is a significant technical story. Most of the models we talk about, the ones from OpenAI or Google or Meta, are pure transformers. They use that attention mechanism where every token looks at every other token in a sequence. It is powerful, but it is computationally expensive. As the sequence gets longer, the memory requirements grow quadratically. If you double the context, you quadruple the memory pressure. IBM decided to go a different route by using a hybrid Mamba-2 and Transformer architecture.
Why bring Mamba into the mix now?
Because pure transformers require too much memory for long context tasks, and enterprise work is almost entirely long context. Think about analyzing a 1,000-page legal contract or a decade of financial reports. Mamba-2 is a state space model, which means it scales linearly with the sequence length rather than quadratically. By blending these two architectures, IBM has managed to achieve a 70 to 80% reduction in memory usage compared to a traditional transformer, only model of the same size. You get the high-quality recall of the transformer for the immediate context, but the Mamba layers handle the long-range dependencies much more efficiently. It allows them to offer a 128,000 token context window without the massive latency spike or the out-of-memory errors you usually see on standard hardware.
70 to 80% memory reduction is a generational leap. That is the difference between needing a massive specialized server rack and being able to run this thing on standard enterprise hardware that a company might already own. It sounds like they are optimizing for the edge or for the chief financial officer who does not want to buy 10,000 more H100s just to summarize internal documents.
That is the core of the strategy. Dr. Jane Smith, IBM's chief AI officer, and Rob Thomas, their senior vice president of software, have been very vocal about this. They are focusing on workhorse models. We are not talking about trillion parameter behemoths. We are talking about the 2 billion and 8 billion parameter range. In January 2026 benchmarks, the Granite 3.38 billion model was clocked at 503 tokens per second. That is fast enough to keep up with almost any real-time application you can imagine, from high-frequency customer service bots to live code generation. It is about being fast and smart enough rather than the smartest at any cost.
If I am a bank, I do not need a model that can explain the existential dread of a toaster or debate the merits of 18th century French poetry. I need a model that can process 1 million loan applications without hallucinating a new currency or leaking private data. Where are they getting the industrial grade parts for these models?
They are being transparent about it, which is another major differentiator. They train these models on over 12 trillion tokens of curated enterprise-grade data. They are not just scraping the dark corners of the internet, grabbing Reddit arguments and fan fiction. They are filtering for high-quality technical content, code, and academic papers. But the real kicker is the watsonx platform. It is their entire ecosystem for development, data governance, and compliance. It is split into 3 layers: watsonx.a for model development, watsonx.data for governance, and watsonx.governance for compliance.
watsonx, got it. For a regulated industry, that is exactly what you want. You mentioned compliance, and I know IBM is the first to get that ISO 42001 certification for an open weight model family. Most people probably hear ISO and their eyes glaze over, but for a legal department at a Fortune 500 company, that is probably the most important thing we have said so far.
It is about trust and indemnity. This is something OpenAI and even Meta with Llama struggle to match in the same way. When a company uses Granite models through the watsonx platform, IBM provides full intellectual property indemnity. If the model accidentally spits out something that looks like copyrighted material and a company gets sued, IBM assumes the legal risk. For a healthcare provider or a global bank, that indemnity is the difference between experimenting in the lab and deploying to 10 million customers. They are the first to earn that ISO 42001 certification for responsible AI management in an open weight family, which means they have a documented, audited process for how these models are built and managed.
It is the classic logic that nobody ever got fired for buying IBM, updated for the AI era. While we are all playing with open source models on our laptops, the adults in the room are looking for someone to blame if things go sideways. IBM is basically saying, blame us. We have the insurance and the certifications to prove we did it right. How do you actually customize these things? I saw something about InstructLab. Is that just another way of saying fine-tuning?
It is more sophisticated than traditional fine-tuning. InstructLab was developed in collaboration with Red Hat, and it uses a taxonomy-driven approach to alignment. Instead of needing a massive team of humans to label data or a giant compute cluster to retrain the model from scratch, InstructLab allows enterprises to add new knowledge and skills using synthetic data generation. You can take your proprietary company data, feed it into this taxonomy, and the model learns the nuances of your specific business without forgetting its general capabilities. Kate Sewell, who is the head of technical product management for IBM's AI models, has pointed out that this makes the model 23 times more cost-effective for specific tasks like retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, compared to using a massive frontier model.
If you can do the specific job for 4% of the cost of the leading competitor, you win the contract every single time. It is about having the right tool for the job.
And they are proving this in the field right now. On March 23rd, they launched Granite Speech specifically for healthcare. In their early trials, they reduced clinical documentation time from an average of 28 minutes per patient down to just 2 minutes. Think about the scale of that across a whole hospital system. That is a fundamental change in how a doctor spends their day. It is 26 minutes of human time returned to the doctor for every single patient.
My doctor spends the whole appointment typing into a computer while barely looking at me. If he could cut that down to 2 minutes, he might actually remember what I look like. And it is not just healthcare. I saw they did something with the Masters tournament recently too.
They did. Also on March 23rd, they debuted Vault Search with the Masters. They used Granite models to index and make searchable over 50 years of golf footage. You can ask it conversational questions like, show me every time someone made a birdie on the 16th hole during a thunderstorm, and it can pull that up instantly. It is a perfect example of taking a massive, unstructured dataset and making it useful through a specialized model. It is not about the model knowing everything. It is about the model knowing where everything is in your specific data vault.
It is interesting that they are leaning into the agentic side of things too. I saw that just today, March 27th, 2026, they announced a partnership with 11 Labs to bring advanced voice AI into watsonx Orchestrate. They are clearly aiming for that $182 billion agentic AI market. They want these models to not just talk or summarize, but to actually do things in a business environment.
The 11 Labs integration is a smart move because it connects the model's logic to a professional interface. If you are building an automated customer service agent for a bank, it cannot sound like a robot from 1984. It needs to have that natural, human-like cadence that 11 Labs provides, backed by the industrial-grade safety and compliance of Granite. They are also phasing out the older Granite 3.0 models in their Planning Analytics Assistant as of March 21st to move everyone onto Granite 4.0. They are seeing huge gains in inference efficiency there, which translates directly to lower operational costs for their clients.
People are realizing that having a trillion parameter model that knows everything about the history of the unicycle is less useful than an 8 billion parameter model that knows your specific supply chain inside and out. But let's look at the Granite Guardian models for a second. What is a Guardian model?
It is a specialized model designed specifically for safety and risk detection. Instead of trying to bake every single safety rule into the main model, which can sometimes make it less useful or more prone to refusal, you have a separate, smaller model that sits on top of the conversation. The Guardian model monitors the inputs and outputs for things like bias, hate speech, or the leakage of sensitive data like social security numbers. It is like having a digital compliance officer watching every interaction in real time. It allows the main Workhorse model to be more flexible and creative within its domain, while the Guardian keeps it within the guardrails.
So you have the Workhorse doing the heavy lifting, and the Guardian ensuring safety. It is a very systematic, engineering-led approach. It is not as flashy as a model that can write a screenplay. But if I am running a government agency or an insurance company, I do not want my AI to be creative. I want it to be predictable, safe, and auditable.
That is exactly why their target market is so specific. They are going after banking, healthcare, insurance, and government. These are industries where move fast and break things is not a strategy, it is a massive liability. They need an audit trail. They need to know exactly what data was used to train the model. IBM's focus on data provenance is a big deal here. They can tell you exactly where those 12 trillion tokens came from. You cannot say the same for a lot of the frontier models that were trained by scraping the entire open web, including copyrighted books and private forums, without permission.
It is the difference between verified data sources and an unvetted data crawl. You might pay a bit more for the transparency and the watsonx ecosystem, but you are a lot less likely to end up with a massive class action lawsuit from a group of artists or publishers. I am curious though, how does this fit into the broader landscape? We talk about open source a lot, but Granite is released under the Apache 2.0 license. That is about as open as it gets in the corporate world.
It is very open. It allows for commercial use, modification, and distribution without the heavy restrictions you see on some open weight models that are not truly open source. IBM is betting that by making the models open, they become the industry standard for the infrastructure. They want developers to build on Granite because it is efficient and safe. And then they want those companies to use the watsonx platform to manage and scale those models. It is the classic Red Hat model. The software is free, but the enterprise-grade management, security, and support are where the value lies.
It is a bold move. They're basically saying, we are so confident in our platform and our indemnity that we will give you the model for free just to get you in the door. It is a complete reversal of the old IBM locked-in mentality. It is more like they're trying to be the neutral provider of AI infrastructure. This strategy reminds me of how companies like Cohere approach the enterprise market. It is a similar vibe, but IBM has that massive legacy footprint and a legal department that has been around for over a century.
The historical context is important too. IBM has been in this game longer than almost anyone. They have seen the AI winters and the hype cycles. Their current strategy with Granite feels like a culmination of that experience. They are not chasing the godlike AI dream or trying to build a digital consciousness. They are building a specialized tool that can be used by a million different mechanics in a million different ways.
The efficiency gains are significant, especially when you consider it can summarize 50 years of golf footage and reduce clinical note-taking by over 90%. But let's get practical for the people listening who are actually making decisions for their companies. If you are a chief technology officer or a lead developer, how do you decide between a frontier model like a GPT-5 or a Claude 4 and something like Granite?
It comes down to the use case and what I call the 3 E's: efficiency, economics, and ethics. If you need a model to brainstorm a creative marketing campaign or do high-level, multi-step creative reasoning where the cost per token doesn't matter as much, the frontier models are still hard to beat. They have that spark of general intelligence that comes from massive scale. But if you are doing RAG, classification, summarization, or code conversion at scale, Granite is going to be significantly cheaper and faster. From an ethics and legal standpoint, if you are in a regulated industry, the IP indemnity and the ISO certification of Granite might be the deciding factor regardless of performance. You have to ask, do I need a genius who might occasionally lie to me? Or do I need a reliable specialist who shows their work?
It is about right-sizing the model. You do not deploy a trillion parameter model to categorize support tickets. I think that is the biggest takeaway for me. The future of AI is not one giant brain in the sky. It is 1,000 specialized, efficient models running exactly where they are needed.
And the where they are needed part is key. Because Granite 4.0 is so memory efficient, we are going to see it running in places we did not expect. Think about on-device AI for industrial sensors in a factory, or secure air-gapped servers for government work. You do not need a connection to a giant data center in California if the model is small enough and smart enough to run locally on a standard server. That is the decentralization of intelligence.
It is funny, we started this talking about how IBM is boring, but the more we dig into it, the more it feels like they are the ones actually building the world we are all going to live in. While the rest of us are distracted by the shiny objects and the latest viral AI video, IBM is providing the foundation.
I find it genuinely compelling. There is a certain beauty in a well-designed piece of infrastructure. When the plumbing works, you do not think about it. That is the ultimate goal for AI. It should become invisible. It should just be a part of the software, making everything run smoother and faster without you having to wonder about the reliability of the machine or whether it is going to hallucinate a legal precedent.
Well, if anyone can make AI invisible and useful, it is probably the people who have been doing it for the last 100 years. This has been a fascinating deep dive. I definitely have a new respect for the utility side of the industry. Before we wrap up, Herman, do you have any final thoughts on the black box versus infrastructure debate?
I think we are moving toward a world where the black box models become the research labs, and models like Granite become the production environment. We will use the big, expensive models to figure out what is possible, and then we will use the efficient, open source models to actually do the work. IBM is positioning itself to own that work layer. They are betting that the future of AI isn't the smartest model, but the most compliant and efficient one.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, let's look at some practical takeaways for the listeners. First, if you are in a regulated industry like healthcare or banking, you need to be looking at the legal and compliance side of your AI stack as much as the technical specs. IBM's IP indemnity is a major benchmark there. Second, right-size your models. Do not overpay for parameters you do not need. If an 8 billion parameter model can do the job at 500 tokens per second, that is your winner. And third, keep an eye on these hybrid architectures like Mamba-2. The era of the transformer-only monopoly is coming to an end as we prioritize memory efficiency and linear scaling.
I would add one more. Look at your data provenance. As copyright laws and AI regulations catch up with the technology, knowing exactly what your model was trained on is going to become a massive competitive advantage, not just a nice to have.
Great points. Well, that is a wrap on IBM and the Granite family. This has been a surprisingly deep one. Thanks as always to our producer, Hilbert Flumingtop, for keeping the wheels on this bus.
And a big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show. They make it possible for us to dive into these technical topics every week.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into the industrial plumbing of AI, you can check out my weirdprompts.com to find more of our deep dives.
This has been My Weird Prompts. We will catch you in the next one.
See ya!
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My Weird Prompts, that's the flows from sloth.